Trying to repair a broken trust is like trying to reapply a piece of tape after it's been ripped off. Think about it. You've used that tape to hang something important, but it peels away. You try to press it back, smoothing out the wrinkles, willing it to stick again with that same strength as before, but it never does. It's lost its adhesive power. This is especially true of trust that you have with yourself. Everyone talks about rebuilding trust with partners, friends, family, other people after it's been broken. But here's the truth no one wants to really admit to themselves. When you've broken that trust with yourself through self betrayal, ignoring your intuition, or just living inauthentically, you can't just patch that up. That used piece of tape will keep failing you at the most crucial times. You need to create something entirely new, stronger. Trying to force that old, sticky, dust covered, ineffective tape back is why so many of us stay stuck in transition limbo for years. Welcome back, everybody, to the Bulletproof Mindset podcast, where we're discussing our biggest flops, our darkest skeletons, and the ways that we can use those experiences in life to create a new bulletproof life to live. So, wherever you are, however you may be tuning in today, thank you for making us part of your day. I'm Thomas. I'm a certified high performance coach. I'm a former actor, a writer, a twice divorced dad of daughters, just learning every day how to love this life better. Today, we're peeling back the layers on something rarely discussed, but absolutely crucial for anyone rebuilding after a major life transition: the broken trust with yourself that's keeping you from moving forward. So, let me expand on what I mean by this metaphor. Picture this with me. You have a cherished photograph. Maybe it's your graduation, your wedding, or just a perfect day with your kids, something important. That photo represents your core identity, your authentic self, your most meaningful experiences. The wall is your life storyline, the journey you're on. And the tape is what connects your identity to your life story. It's the trust relationship that you have with yourself. When that tape fails and the photo crashes to the ground, most people make a critical mistake. They focus all their energy on trying to salvage that same piece of tape, pressing it back, rubbing it, willing it to stick again, perhaps even applying super glue to that adhesive to try and make it relive. They believe that they can't make that original tape work. And if not, then something fundamentally is wrong with them or their story. But here's the truth: the photo isn't damaged. Your core identity, your authentic self, your capacity for joy and meaning, that's all still intact. The wall isn't the problem either. Your life's journey continues whether or not you acknowledge it. It's just the connection between them, the trust, that needs replacing, not repairing. All right. Mel Robbins puts it in this way in her book, the five, the high five habit. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you're teaching your brain that you can't be trusted. You know, when life transitions shake us, like a divorce or loss of a job or a health crisis, we often interpret this as evidence that we're fundamentally flawed. But it's not the picture that's flawed. It's just that the old adhesive no longer serves its purpose. Jay Shetty explains it this way. He says, trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. That's so true with trust, isn't it? The buckets have spilled. Your old way of trusting yourself has failed. But that doesn't mean that you need to discard the photo or blame the wall, much less punch a hole in it. You simply need a better adhesive solution. Seeing yourself as a victim of broken trust is kind of like obsessing over that failed piece of tape, repeatedly trying to make it work again and again and again, growing increasingly frustrated when it won't work, but choosing to create a new narrative. All right. Like I'm building a stronger trust than before. That's recognizing that you can replace the tape with something better. This doesn't diminish the photo's value. It doesn't diminish the importance of the wall. It enhances it by connecting it more securely together. In fact, that new connection, that industrial strength adhesive that replaces the flimsy tape, that actually adds meaning to the picture. Each time you reconnect your authentic self to your life with stronger trust, you add another layer of wisdom, of discernment to your identity. The photo becomes more valuable, not less valuable, because it survived something. The greatest liberation comes when you realize that replacing the tape isn't failure, it's experience. And with that experience comes wisdom. It's not about pretending the old tape didn't fail. It's about honoring that failure by creating something better in its place because it happened. Your identity isn't the problem. Your life story isn't the problem. It's just time for a better connection between the two. So, what happens if you keep trying to reapply that same piece of tape? That photo, which represents your dreams, your potential, your future, it's going to keep falling to the ground. You may even now hear the glass break over and over again. You stay living in that gap between who you are and who you know you could be. You make decisions with a fraction of the power because there's always that little voice asking you, but can I really trust myself this time? I've seen this happen dozens of times with clients. They leave a toxic relationship, but they bring that same self doubt into the next one. Or they quit a soul crushing job, but carry the same insecurity to their next position. Maybe they swear that they're going to honor their health this time after a wake up call, but after it passes and the dust settles, they fall right back into the same patterns within weeks. Each time, it's like they're pressing that same piece of used tape back onto the wall, hoping that somehow, miraculously, this time it's going to hold. The cost is enormous and it could be total. You hold back in new relationships because you don't trust your judgment. You play small in your new career because you don't trust your capacities, your capabilities. You hesitate to make bold moves because you've lost faith in your own decision making. Your life becomes a series of half commitments and partial engagements. Brendon Burchard puts it bluntly in High Performance Habits, his book. He says this: doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. When that self doubt is self directed, when you fundamentally don't trust yourself, it's not just one dream at stake, it's every possibility for your future that's at stake. The ultimate price is living the rest of your life looking over your shoulder at yourself, second guessing every instinct, never experiencing freedom and power that comes from complete self trust. That's not rebuilding after transition. That's allowing one chapter of your story to contaminate every other chapter.
Hey, it's Thomas, and if this episode resonates with you, I want to make sure you know about our free community, Becoming Bulletproof. It's a free community built for people just like you, people that feel stuck in the shadow of past failure or struggling just to move forward after setbacks and challenges in life. Maybe you've struggled to find a place where you can finally reclaim your identity or rebuild the confidence you've lost or find that resilience to thrive. This isn't just a community group. This is meant to be a movement, a transformative space where men and women can redefine who they are and break free from those limiting beliefs and develop habits and skills necessary to create the life they love. In Becoming Bulletproof, You're going to discover how to turn pain into power and setbacks into stepping stones. You'll find tools to build emotional resilience and clarity and confidence, even practical strategies for setting boundaries and mastering time management. I mean, who doesn't need that? Forming habits that fuel long-term growth? Bring it. Most importantly, you're going to find a community that's got your back. Every step of the way, we're going to share stories and celebrate wins together, hold each other up when we need that support to move forward. So, if you're ready to stop letting your past define who you are today and start living that creation of a future you deserve, well, this is your moment. This is your step. Join Becoming Bulletproof today. It's free and it's waiting for you. So go to becomingbulletproof.info right now and sign up for that free community. Let's do this. Together we can become bulletproof. Join today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my own experience with broken self trust. After my second divorce, I was not just questioning my ex partners, I was questioning everything about myself, my judgment, my intuition, my worth, my ability to perceive reality accurately. I'd stayed in relationships that weren't working. I'd ignored red flags. I'd betrayed what I knew deep down to be true. I remember the exact moment I realized how broken my self trust was. I was standing in my kitchen trying to decide whether to accept a new coffee date with someone that I had met recently. A simple decision, right? Just coffee. But I froze in that moment. I was paralyzed completely. I literally called 3 different friends asking what they thought I should do over a coffee date. It hit me. I no longer trusted myself to make even the smallest decisions. It was like I'd used up all of my tape trying to hold together relationships that were meant to fall apart. Now I was standing there with this wrinkled, dusty, stretched out piece of tape trying to make it stick to a new situation, and it wasn't holding. I remember sitting across from my therapist about 6 weeks after my divorce was final saying, "I don't know if I can trust myself to make good decisions anymore." She asked me a simple question that really just floored me, and I'll never forget it. She asked, "Have you ever apologized to yourself for the ways you betrayed your own trust?" Man, that hit me like a dump truck. I spent months analyzing what my exes did wrong, what I should have seen, what others had told me, but I ignored. But I hadn't addressed the fundamental breach of trust with myself. I hadn't acknowledged how often I'd overridden my own intuition, silenced my own voice, and ignored my own needs. I tried all the usual self help approaches. I made lists of my good decisions, counterbalanced that with the bad ones. I recited affirmations about trusting myself, regularly. I tried to convince myself that my judgment wasn't as flawed as I thought. But it was exactly like trying to reapply that piece of tape that had lost its stickiness. Nothing was holding. Nothing made sense. Then there was this one night, I'll never forget it, when I was trying to make a big decision about whether to take a new job. I made a pro and con list. I consulted everybody that I knew. I read books about the decision making, but I still couldn't commit to it or reject it. It was one night, a little after 3 a.m. I was pacing in my room when I caught my own reflection in the mirror. I made eye contact with myself. I looked exhausted, fractured. I was. And that's when it hit me. I realized I wasn't just struggling with this decision. I was really struggling with every decision that I'd made because I was using old ineffective methods to build trust with myself in the present. The breakthrough came when I realized I needed to stop trying to repair the old broken trust and instead build something entirely new. I didn't need to fix my relationship with myself. I needed to create a completely different one based on different principles because the old principles that I'd relied on didn't work before. Why in the world would I think they work again? What's the definition of repeating yourself endlessly and expecting a new outcome? Yeah, it is insanity. So I stopped focusing on the past betrayals and I started creating new evidence, new patterns, new commitments, not to repair something, but to rebuild from the ground up. Instead of reusing that old failed tape, I went out and I got industrial strength adhesive. I started with tiny decisions that aligned with my values. I stopped asking others' opinions before checking with myself first. I began to practice sitting quietly every morning and asking just simple questions. What do I know to be true today? And then honoring whatever came up into my subconscious. That shift changed everything. Instead of consistently looking backward and where trust had been broken, I started looking forward to create a new track record with myself. That's when my rebuild began. Before I share the 3 game-changing strategies that transform my relationship with myself, I want to underline an incredible opportunity for you to take those same steps. An ad just previously for Becoming Bulletproof, our free community. You heard that ad, and I just want to underline the importance of surrounding yourself with the right environment, the right people, and the right processes and mindset shifts and philosophies to create your own version of your bulletproof life is so important. I can't underline this enough. And so I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, go check that community out at becomingbulletproof.info/resources. You'll see a link to join the community along with some of our other free resources. I can't underline it enough. And it costs you nothing, nothing but your time and your willingness to take the step to build your own new piece of tape that can be the difference maker and you putting back your identity to your life timeline. Go check it out today. Whether you're navigating the aftermath of a major loss like divorce or the loss of a loved one, coping with those things, or simply just trying to find your footing after that failure, this community is for you. Okay, now let's get into those 3 transformational truths about building a new trust with yourself after a major life transition. Truth 1, don't repair trust, create a new trust agreement. James Clear writes in Atomic Habits, he says this: every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. The problem with trying to repair the broken self trust is that you're still operating within the same flawed system that led to the betrayal in the first place. Think about that piece of tape again. Okay. Even if you could somehow get it to stick temporarily, it's the same tape with the same vulnerabilities, the same lack of adhesive, the same weaknesses that caused it to fail before. What you need isn't a better tape reapplying technique. What you need is a completely different adhesive solution. Lisa Turkhurst explains it this way: sometimes to move forward, we have to completely redefine what moving forward looks like. This is profoundly true with self trust. You don't need to fix the old trust. You need to establish a completely new trust agreement with yourself. All right. So here's kind of what that looks like: explicitly define the terms of your new relationship with yourself. Okay. What you will and what you won't tolerate, your non negotiables. What do they look like today? Don't worry about what they were before. What are they now? And then how you'll communicate those things with yourself, how you'll handle the conflicts when they come up. Create clear, specific ways that you're going to hold yourself accountable that are different from the ways you did before. Establish new metrics for success that aren't based on your old definition of what trust is. Okay. I remember a specific turning point in my own journey after weeks, even months of trying to repair the broken trust I had. I sat down and I wrote out an actual contract with myself. I know this sounds a little bit cheesy. I understand, but it worked for me. Instead of vague intentions to trust myself more, things like that. I wrote down exactly what my new relationship with myself should look like, what I wanted it to look like. So here's kind of this is directly out of my journal. So you're free to use this. And I encourage you to start somewhere similar to here. Here's what I wrote. I, Thomas, commit to checking in with my body before making decisions. I commit to waiting 24 hours before saying yes to things that don't immediately feel right. And I commit to writing down my intuitions and reviewing them regularly to strengthen that muscle. That's this wasn't about fixing what was broken, it's about establishing something entirely new. And like replacing that worn out piece of tape with industrial strength mounting brackets. Okay, consider Oprah Winfrey's journey after years of struggling with her own weight, making public commitments she couldn't keep. She stopped trying to repair her broken trust around that issue. Instead, she created an entirely new agreement with herself, one that wasn't about weight at all, but about overall health and well being, how she felt. This wasn't repairing the old torn tape, it was creating a completely different adhesive. For me, this meant stopping the endless post-mortems on my failed marriages and instead creating a new agreement with myself. Again, this is from my journal. I said it this way: I will speak honestly to myself even when it's uncomfortable. I will check in with my body's signals every day and I will act on what I know rather than what I feel or hope. These weren't attempts to fix what was broken, they were the foundation of a completely new relationship with myself. All right, truth number two: evidence creates trust, not intentions or promises. Brendan Burchard emphasizes this when he says in his book, trust is built with consistency. Okay. After a major life change or transition, we often try to rebuild self trust through intention, promises, motivation, rather than concrete evidence, habits, routines. This is where the tape analogy becomes particularly relevant. No matter how much you want that used piece of tape to stick again, what matters is whether it actually holds when under pressure. You can stare at it all day long, willing it to work, but the only real test is, does it actually keep the photo on the wall? Your intentions, your promises, your motivation to yourself are meaningless without action, without evidence. I learned this the hard way after my second divorce. I kept making grand proclamations about trusting my gut, honoring myself, but then I'd fall back into the same old patterns within days, patterns that years before created the environment that led to my divorce. It was like repeatedly pressing that same failed piece of tape back onto the wall, expecting it to work, even though I knew it wasn't going to, making that same hopeful declaration every time, only to have it fail again and again. Mel Robbins puts it this way: your brain doesn't care what you say, it only cares what you do. To rebuild new trust with yourself, you've got to create small, achievable commitments specifically designed to be kept. Document and celebrate every piece of evidence, every action that you're trustworthy again, and then gradually increase the stakes only after establishing a clear, consistent pattern of reliability. All right. So here's an example from my own life of how this worked. After realizing intentions or promises or motivation wasn't enough, I started with ridiculously small commitments. Okay. So for instance, I'd set my alarm for 7 a.m. and then I promised myself before I went to sleep, I'm going to get up without hitting snooze. That's it. That small, that insignificant. not changing my entire morning routine around becoming a more productivity wizard or anything, just getting up when I said I would. When I succeeded, which I did because I made it achievable, I physically wrote down in my journal, I kept my word to myself today. I did this for 2 solid weeks before adding anything else, any other small commitment. I know it sounds trivial, but each of these tiny things, these promises, it was like applying a fresh piece of tape, each one stronger than the last. I want you to consider the remarkable story of David Goggins. He's a former Navy SEAL and an ultra marathon runner. After years of self betrayal through poor health, choices, and avoidance of his potential, really, he didn't just try to repair trust with himself through promises again. Just to, I promised myself I'm going to do better. He created daily unmistakable evidence through his accountability mirror. You may have read about this, the accountability mirror practice, where he would make commitments to his reflection and then physically check them off. This wasn't about repairing old trust. It's about creating overwhelming evidence of something new forming and building and strengthening. In my own journey, I started with ridiculously small commitments, like, going to bed on time when I said I would, drinking the amount of water that I promised myself, taking 5 minutes for meditation, small things like that. These weren't impressive goals at all, but they were evidence generators, acts and achievements that I could look back on, and that created more confidence in myself. Each one became a brick in my foundation of my new relationship with myself, a promise kept. Over time, those small evidences accumulated into a trust that was stronger than any trust that I had before. Okay, and truth number 3, self trust requires a new relationship with failure. Jay Shetty notes in Think Like a Monk that the way we respond to failure determines how long it will affect us. When rebuilding trust with yourself after a major life transition, your relationship with failure becomes crucial. Going back to our tape analogy here, when we use that piece of tape over and over again and it fails and your photo crashes to the floor again, what is your reaction to that? If you immediately blame the tape, try the same tape again, or even give up hanging photos altogether, you are now stuck in an old paradigm. The new approach recognizes that failure is information, it's data, it's not judgment, it's not indictment. In the old trust paradigm, every failure was evidence that you cannot be trusted. In the new trust agreement, failure needs to be redefined completely. It's not a breach of trust. It's simply data that helps you redefine your approach the next time. I remember one of my most painful post divorce lessons. About a year after my divorce, I started seeing people again. Specifically, one person I started to uh, see more on a regular basis. It turned out that this person was remarkably similar to my ex in all the wrong ways. When I finally recognized the pattern, my first reaction was devastating self-doubt. See, I told myself, "See, you can't be trusted. You can't trust yourself. You haven't learned anything." But then I tried something different. Instead of seeing this as proof of my broken trustworthiness, I got curious. I journaled about what had attracted me to this person in the first place. Okay. Then what red flags that I'd ignored, what needs I was trying to meet. This failure became data, a data point, information, ammunition for me, not a death sentence for my self trust. James Clear explains it this way in his mindset shift. Failure is not a bug of learning, it's a feature. When building a new self trust, we've got to distinguish between a failure of action and a failure of trust. A not achieving the goal versus not being honest with myself about it. Creating a specific protocol for how you'll handle disappointment that strengthens rather than weakens your trust. Failure is going to happen. How we handle that disappointment sometimes shapes how we act next. So focus on consistency of your approach rather than the perfection of the outcome. Here's how this played out in my life. I created what I call my failure protocol. Whenever I experienced a setback that would have previously destroyed my self trust, I would follow these steps. All right. One, acknowledge what happened without judgment. Identify the one thing that I did that aligned with my values, even if the outcome wasn't what I wanted. Next, extract one lesson I could learn and apply the next time. Okay. The next step is to make one small commitment based on the lesson I'd learned. So let's go over those four again. Acknowledging what happened without judgment. Two is identifying what I did, one thing I did that aligned with my values, even if the outcome wasn't desired. Three, extract one lesson I could apply the next time. And then the last one, make small commitments based on that lesson. This completely transformed how failure affected my self-trust. Instead of every disappointment tearing off the tape again, it became an opportunity to apply a stronger, more divisive, more decisive adhesive. I want you to consider J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. In her journey, after her divorce and time on government assistance, she did not see her rejected manuscripts as evidence that she couldn't trust her writing abilities. She reframed every rejection as a data point that was helping her redefine or refine her work to make it better, more attractive, etc. This wasn't about repairing her broken trust. It was about creating a new relationship with failure that made trust more resilient. For me, this meant completely changing how I handle setbacks in my post divorce life. Instead of seeing every unsuccessful connection as evidence that I can't trust my own judgment, I created a new practice. Okay. After each connection or date, I would journal three things that I learned and one way I honored my values in that experience. This transformed failure for me from a trust breaker to a trust builder. Super important. So here's the bottom line. Trying to repair broken trust with yourself is often like trying to reapply a piece of tape after it's been ripped off. It simply won't hold. So instead of focusing on fixing what was broken, create something entirely new and stronger. Okay, through establishing a new trust agreement, generating consistent evidence, and redefining your relationship with failure, you can build a level of self trust that's more powerful than anything that you had before. Think of it this way. You're not you're not in the tape repair business anymore. You're in the business of finding and creating better fastening solutions. Maybe what you need isn't tape at all. Maybe it's screws, nails, industrial adhesive, or a completely different approach to hanging things. As Mel Robbins would say, the 5-second rule isn't about feeling ready. It's about training your brain that you'll do what you say even when you don't want to. Your challenge today isn't to feel failure every step of the way. It's not to get down on yourself. It's to identify one small way that you can start generating evidence of trustworthiness with yourself. Maybe it's honoring your bedtime, speaking up in one situation where you'd normally stay silent, or simply acknowledging a truth that you've been avoiding about yourself. Start with evidence, not intentions, and watch as new, stronger trust begins to form. If today's episode hit home, I encourage you to subscribe to the Bulletproof Mindset podcast. And I also encourage you to share this specific episode with someone in your life that you feel needs this message today. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram or TikTok at This Bulletproof Life. And don't forget about Becoming Bulletproof, the free community where you can learn more strategies more often with the support around you with people like you that are traveling that same road. So thanks so much for spending this time with me today. Your attention means a lot, and I don't take it for granted, not 1 minute that you spent here. If something from today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to share it with somebody that you feel is struggling with trusting themselves after a major life shift. Sometimes all it takes is one new perspective to completely transform someone's relationship with themselves. So until next time, remember this: don't waste your energy trying to make that old piece of tape stick. Create something new that bonds even stronger than before. Have a great week, everybody.